I know how we all love cutting dies with matching stamps, and we've got a new set for you.
It's all about layering poppies.
Yes.
And what you can do with them.
And there's so many things. Come play with us. Well, here is the set, as you can see.
15 layering poppies stamps, and you'll recognize that layering ability because we've had layering flowers, layering butterflies,
right.
and so it's going to be very easy process with that.
And the cutting die, I do need to tell you that these are in limited quantity. We pride ourselves on the fact that our cutting dies can stand alone, or they can be used with the stamp.
Right.
But with the poppies, these shapes really can't stand alone. They have to be with the stamp.
To really make sense.
Yeah.
Correct. So, but they do work perfectly with these. And I love all of the varieties, the looks of the poppies. You get like a full on, you get a profile, you get a little bit sideways, and each of them go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Easy to stamp these. You're also getting greetings, where love blooms, so does hope. I love that one. And then you're getting instructions on the back, and these are numbered to tell you 1, 2, 3 numbered. Exactly
and
how
colored.
To stamp them. Numbered and colored. So the yellows go together, the purples on the leaves go together. And I'd like to actually, oh, great idea here as well. But I'd like to show you what that looks like. So stamping those, really easy. You're going to start with stamp number 1, that's your base layer and your lightest color ink. Stamp number 2, that's your darkest ink, because that's going to create this nice outline. And stamp number 3 is that kind of a medium color ink. That's your highlights, and that adds your detail.
Now this is slightly different than what we usually do, because what we usually do is
outline that makes it different.
Right. We usually do light, medium, and dark, but now it's light, dark, and medium,
but
unless you choose.
Feel free to mix that up a little. And another great thing is that you're going to see stamp number 2 used all by itself without the other layering stamps to get a nice look.
You told them it was going to be a surprise.
Well, there it is.
Okay, here is a first option, and I love this, where you've got the number 2 stamp used by itself, but then all of them used here. And I love the leaves peeking out from the bottom and high as part of the stamp.
So that's really fun and easy. You're just going to use that darkest layer for your background, and then you're going to have this focal. And notice how the focal is sitting even with the bottom of the card instead of in the middle of the card. Boy, does that add interest, I think. That's just kind of fun. So let me show you just really briefly stamp number 1, that's the lightest color ink, and I've got my Misty stamping tool here. We also have the Tim Holtz stamping platform available now, so check that out. And so number 2 already lined up because they're clear. I can line up those edges, and I'm going to use my darkest ink. So in this case,
this is out of the pink set?
Out of the pink set. In this case, I'm going to use this nice dark ink color and all the way down the stem here. By the way, you can also ink them separately. Say I decide to use the pink on the flower and then just use green on the stem. That works too. Go ahead and stamp. What I love about the Misty is that I can do this a couple of times to make that darker, and I know it's going to stamp in just exactly the same place. So now you've got your second layer, and then you go back with that third layer, 1, 2, 3, and you've got that layered flower.
And that third layer is going to give you the final detail, and so it just works perfectly. As you can see, everything lines up. Same thing on the leaves. We use the yellow and green set of Cat's Eye cues, and fun to do something in the center. Looks like stickles were used there.
Right, just a little bit of gold that just kind of helps it pop just a little bit.
Now you can use each of those blossoms individually, and the leaf individually, and the message also. So that is an example, and this is with the red set, and also a brown ink pad.
And I think that might have been, oh no, you're right. I think it is just the reds by itself. Sometimes we'll combine 2 Cat's Eye cues, like the reds and the yellows, but no, here's the reds. And so,
it goes into the orange.
You've got all of the oranges in there, so really fun.
Very nice.
I do like that this was not inked at all, like you said. That's a great look.
I think that's nice. And on the inside, we've got some of the leaves just done with one of the stamps and cut out of paper, so very, very nice. This is, I think, my favorite. Well, one of my favorites, but I think it's so striking. Now, Gail gave it away, but this is using only one of the stamps. It is the number 2 one, And this is out, believe it or not, pink fluorescent. Now, we've been out of this embossing powder, but we're going to bring it back.
Yay.
Because this is, well, you know what I say, it's drop dead gorgeous. It's absolutely wonderful.
It is.
Debbie did it simply on black cardstock with the it's tickled pink fluorescent embossing powder from our friends at Wow. And isn't that just wonderful? And
it is beautiful.
Fun to see them. You can see the different, the 3 different versions of the poppy, as you said.
Stamp them up high, stamp them down low, add the little leaves, and even the leaves all in pink. That's a great look.
I think it's just very fun fun and striking. Now, that's neat. You can also take a glitter look. Now this is, it's kind of paling in comparison, but it is actually the pink glitter embossing powder.
So you can find some of those lighter. We could have done that in white without glitter. We have lots of glitter embossing powders that would work well on there, and it's just an interesting look. I really like the ribbon with that one, the velvet glitter ribbon too.
Very nice. Fun to have this kind of going off of the stem too. Just really, really nice.
A couple of different options.
Now here is another option, and again it's identifying each of those 3. And this is an example of having, I guess the stem and that whole thing was stamped brown, interestingly.
And so let's notice here that the background, first it was stamped on the background, and have you noticed this one is cut out, so now we're using the cutting dies, and that was foam taped in place, so that was done separately. So on that one behind, you only have to stamp it in brown, you don't have to do all the layering behind it. And that was used with the yellow, green, and the red. So now you're getting the yellows, getting a little orange in there, and you're definitely getting the greens for the leaves.
So each of these flowers has been die cut and foam taped up, as well as the leaves. So you have that dimensional look, and then on the inside, one going horizontally. That's kind of nice too.
It is nice.
Very pretty.
Simple to do.
This is neat. Stamped on red suede paper.
Isn't that fun?
Wow.
And just do that in black. So now again, you're just using that stamp number 2 for each one of those. Stamp on the suede, use the cutting die to cut it out, no fussy cutting, and stamp on that white cardstock in black, and then just locate that cutting die flower, that die cut flower right on top of there.
So really, really fun. Now the pen work that's been done around the edge, don't drive yourself crazy with this. It needs to look imperfect. So it's just a little squiggle, and you can see.
Actually I did it right with a ruler sitting in place. I just lined my ruler up. And I took my pen. I had a fine line pen, which I don't, well here's one. The Le Pen would work great for this, by the way. The Le Pen from the, I can't remember which set has the black one in it. You could look that up. And I just went along and just sort of went like that. Just as I went and lifted and went along, lifted, so you've got little breaks. If you don't like that, just make little dash lines like that. That'll work too, if that's easier.
Very, very pretty, very striking. And on the inside, let's let one come up, and then you've just got the pen work just around that corner for really nice.
If that's too daunting, just use border dazzles or thin lines dazzles. Those will work perfect too.
Very, very nice. Now something that you did is, the phrase is where flowers bloom, so does hope, but you masked that off or only ink the hope and stamped it there.
Right, and the way I'll do that is I'll take the stamp itself, I turn it over, and I know here's my word hope, it's backwards here. I like to put transparent tape over the other words, then ink that up, peel off the transparent tape, and then stamp, and then only the word hope will stamp.
That's nice. So again, giving you another look at that. Very, very pretty. This is a technique called spotlighting, and it's actually, as you can see, it's highlighting an area rather than a blossom. This one was doing a whole blossom, but this is doing an area. So in this case, it's going over a couple of flowers. Really striking.
And the flowers themselves, this was not done in it was done in a 1-2, but not a 3 process. Lene chose not to use that third highlighting stamp and did some other highlighting on her own. Let me show you real quickly how the highlighting was done. So I've got got the paper because she stamped right onto the patterned paper. I've got that layer number 1 stamp, and she started with the yellow. So I've got the nice bright yellow. She inked the entire piece here. So let me get that all inked up. We want to make that nice and bright before we do anything else. You can see it a little bit. I'm going to keep inking it so that I can get as much yellow on there as possible. And sometimes it's going to take 2 or 3 things to make sure you can see it on patterned paper. And I'll make this my last yellow stamping. Once we've got that, now she takes the next kind of yellow. She called it a yellow. It's kind of a tan brown, I guess. It's this lighter, darker color. And she went around the edges. Just around the edges with it. I love
doing that. I think that's great.
Yeah, and then when you stamp that, you're going to get a little bit of a darker edge around the outer bit. And then, one more thing, we're going to take the reds set and an art dauber. I don't even need to use the stamp now, and get the orange and add some highlighting just to the center. I'm just sort of pounce that around. And so now you've got this nice great highlight right in the center, and on top of that, stamp that outline layer, and there it is.
That's what you get. Isn't that great? So that process was done also on this circle of cardstock.
Right, I wanted to mention that once that was stamped, once that last layer was on here, so now you've got the whole flower, then she laid this using repositional adhesive, so it makes it easy to remove. Put a little of that on the back of this, laid it right on top of that flower. She left that flower right in place, right where it, I'm trying to show it, right where it is, and she went ahead and stamped right on top of that to get it to match that image perfectly.
Very good. So that's where you've got that going on both sides. Really striking, very, very striking. I know it took several layers to get that ink onto the pattern paper, but I'll tell you, I think the dimension that that pattern paper gives behind the ink is just beautiful. So this is just beautifully done. I don't think the inside.
I think so.
Yes, it is.
Surprise.
Okay, again, we've got just one. Torn edges are pretty.
I like that. Lene does that a lot. She'll choose one edge somewhere and just tear a little bit, and maybe on the front it's torn somewhere else. I'm not sure. Yeah, sure, torn on the bottom. So
not only do we have the poppies and the limited edition of the cutting dies, but there are so many ways that you can use them.
And you're just going to get some beautiful looks with those layering poppies. It's so fun. And you get a look that sort of looks hand-painted, and you didn't. You just went 1, 2, 3 and stamped it.
And it's our pleasure to bring this to you. Enjoy your poppies.